Hey, what's up everybody? This is your boy Kenny, and this is my review for the Bobby Brown story part 2. And let me say, this part of the Bobby Brown story was so heavy. I mean, there were a lot of moments where I got really choked up, and it was a very moving episode. And again, shout out to Willie McLean. He played... This brother is such a phenomenal talent, and I am so happy he's getting his shine. He delivered playing Bobby Brown. And, you know, everyone, I mean, even Gabrielle Dennis, who played Whitney Houston, she did a phenomenal job. I truly enjoyed this production. I think it's definitely award-worthy. So I hope they get some nominations and get some wins, because they really delivered. You know, with this production of the Bobby Brown story. And there's so much that happens, so I'm going to try my best to tie everything together and not make this too long. But if it gets long, bear with me. There's so much. And wow, it was really moving. So part 2 starts off, Bobby was in a car accident with Whitney's car in Florida, and it was a DUI. Then we get a clips. Then after that, we see that him and Whitney are on the tour bus. You know, he's on tour with New Edition. You know, with the Back Home Again tour, and he's pretty much doing drugs. And next thing you know, Whitney is there, you know, filing her nails with a nail filer, and he starts hallucinating and starts thinking that Whitney's trying to kill him. He completely flips out, pulls out a gun, and was like, "You trying to kill me?" And, you know, he completely shocked everybody, and Whitney has gotten scared, because it's like he's waving a gun at her and everybody, and then he tells the bus driver, "Pull this damn bus over or you'll regret it." So they pull the bus out in the middle of nowhere, like pretty much kind of like, you know, probably like in the South somewhere. And he just gets out and starts running on this guy's property or whatever. And this guy was like a redneck with a big rifle and probably was ready to shoot a black man and was very trigger happy. And we see that the whole crew, came and tried to, you know, to pretty much try to, rescue Bobby. And one of the people that was there was Ricky Bell, who was played by Elijah Kelly. So, I was happy that they brought back some of the original actors from the New Edition story into the Bobby Brown story as well. And Ricky Bell literally pleaded with the guy to not shoot them, you know, that he's kind of off his rocker. We're trying to get him, we're trying to calm him down, but please don't shoot us. And then later on, we see that Whitney comes through, and then all of a sudden, the guy, the guy with the shotgun, all of a sudden was like, "Is that Whitney Houston?" And I'm like, "Yo, really?" Here it is. You about to shoot her damn husband, but he recognized who Whitney Houston was. I mean, Whitney Houston did have a major pop career, so the white audience, white people love Whitney Houston. So he recognized Whitney. I cracked up laughing. I was like, here it is. He was about to shoot these black men, but he recognized Whitney Houston. So how about that? You know, even racists loved her. You know, and this just goes to show how beloved Whitney Houston was, you know. But that was a crazy moment, though. Then we get a scene where they're at the house back in Jersey, and this took place in 1999. You know, he's doing, you know, drugs and everything, and the next thing you know, he's walking with a drink and he completely passes out. Whitney is so lit and completely fucked up. She don't even realize that the man had a stroke. She, you know, "Oh boy, get your plane, get up boy, get up. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna start without you. You see this? I'm gonna start without you. And yeah, you need to get yourself up, and, you know, somebody need to clean this mess, because I ain't cleaning shit." I'm like, Whitney was completely fucked up. And then the next thing you know, we see that he's on a stretcher, which is how they opened up the movie in part 1, with him being on a stretcher. You know, he pretty much had a really bad stroke, and he almost died. And we see that, Whitney was praying and pleading and everything, and while he was, in the hospital, she was saying that, look, we need to change our lives, we need to do better, not just for ourselves but for Bobby Chris. We gotta, do better, and no more drugs and all that. And we pretty much see that Bobby kind of comes to a little bit, and he says that, yeah, no more drugs, Nippy. So then we see that they go to vacation at the Bahamas, as a family, and we see that the paparazzi's taking pictures of them. Then all of a sudden, when they get to Florida, they serve him with a warrant for his arrest because he actually violated. He pretty much violated his probation, so he had to stay in Florida and serve his time. And then we see that, while he's in jail, he's, calls Whitney, to talk and everything. And Whitney was just over the top, because she was just unreasonable, and she was like, oh no, you gonna stay on the phone with me, and you not getting off this phone. And she's like, it's your fault that you in there and all of that. And it was just crazy, because here it is, while he was in jail, he pretty much, went cold turkey, because he lives such this, this drug-fueled lifestyle. Being locked up, he no longer had access to that. So he literally went cold turkey. He was getting the cold sweats. You saw him mopping floors, and, he really had, I think him going to prison was somewhat of a humbling experience for him. And here it is, he was getting sick to his stomach, and his the inmate that was in the cell with him, the dude was like a big dude or whatever, so we know what kind of guy he was, but he was literally pleading with the guy to help him get something and everything. He says, nah, man, you're doing good, you're gonna get through this. And he's crying and pleading, because Bobby just got to the point, he woke up in a cold sweat and just started throwing up everywhere. The guy cleans up the throw up, and he says that you're going to be okay, Bobby. You're going to be all right. So that was a very moving scene, that this prisoner looked out for him. And then we actually saw a scene where they're eating lunch or whatever, pretty much eating bologna sandwiches. And this guy comes and he tries to push some drugs onto the guy, and also onto Bobby. But Bobby didn't take it. And we really see that Bobby was really making a conscious decision to no longer do drugs. So then, later on, they show him getting released from jail. Remember when Chris Rock led that big, mobilization, free Bobby Brown? Bobby Brown gets out, and they pick up where Whitney kind of jumps into his arms, and they get into the limo. They get into the limo, and immediately, Whitney is pulling out some coke. And he was like, look, I thought we weren't doing that no more. We don't need that stuff no more. And, Whitney got defensive, was like, you don't tell me what I need. I was trying to help you out. This is what got me through all this time without you being around. And, and she was like, this is what's been getting me through, so I'm going to keep doing what I do. So we even see that Bobby was trying to help Whitney to get sober, but Whitney was Whitney, and Whitney was going to do things her way or no way. Then we see that, finally he gets out of jail, and he has his bonding moment with Bobby Chris, and he sings this song from Sly and Family Stone, and it's like their little special song. And, he made her some French toast and all that, because the French toast she was eating, he was like, let me make you some real French toast, because Bobby can throw down. So then we see that Bobby had to make things right with Tommy, so he goes to the ATL to hang out with Tommy, and they're playing pool, and he was saying that, so, what's going on and everything. And he talks about he's about to work on the song with Ja Rule. Y'all remember that, Jane? No, you can roll, dealing with them. I know you miss my loving, my thugging for loving. I was like, oh yeah, I remember that shit. That was my jam. So it was cool that, he's, was, because I actually like that song. But then he was saying that, yeah, I'm trying to get, get 1 million and everything because, that's my lucky number. And Tommy reminded him, like, oh, I thought it was 6. Because, back then when he was like, was tripping on drugs, he was really full of himself and was he was tripping. Like, if it ain't 6 million, then I ain't doing it. So he pretty much comes to his brothers like, look, I know things have been messed up in the past, but I really need your help. And Tommy agrees to help him. And then he kind of, said, like, now back to this pool game. Because he actually knew that Bobby was a good pool player, but he had let Tommy win because he felt guilty of how the way he treated him. And he, Tommy, lets him know, like, okay, we about to play again, but don't take this ass whooping personally. One of the infamous lines from Harlem Nights. So I thought that was pretty cool. Let's see here. Okay. So then we see that Bobby, again, he gets arrested. He was doing 52 in a 30, in a 30 mile he was pretty much driving 52 when the speed limit was 35, and he also ran a red light. He gets arrested, and once he gets to the house, he sees there are all these, cameras and trucks and everything in front of his house. And what went down was the infamous interview that Whitney did with Diane Sawyer. So they were pretty much at their house in Atlanta, and that's where that interview took place. And afterwards, and like when Bobby came there, Bobby was pissed. He was like, what the hell you people doing here? This is my house. What the hell's going on? And the lady was like, well, look, we only got a little bit more shots. Just give us some time and we'll be out of here. And then he was like, no, y'all need to get the hell up out of here now. This is my house, and what the hell you guys doing here? So afterwards, they had the conversation because Bobby was a part of the interview. And pretty much, he started talking about, like, crack is whack. Really, really nippy? What kind of shit is that? And, she was saying that, look, I had nothing to hide. I said what I had to say, and I meant what I said. Not realizing that this was going to be kind of like a, like a chain. It's going to be like a chain cycle that's just going to keep playing on throughout her career. I mean, that whole crack is whack thing played out for the longest, and even as of now, that's definitely a catchphrase when people think of Whitney, where she pretty much was like, hey, I make too much money to ever smoke crack, like, I never smoke crack because I make more money than you do, I don't do that. She does the real shit. I mean, she's like coke and meth, up there, the rich man's drugs. So, and he was saying that, like, and I felt stupid, I was kind of like not, I was kind of tripping up on my words and stuff, and, I just didn't feel comfortable, and it just wasn't right. So pretty much he was like, look, I don't want these kind of people being up in my house and all this shit. And Whitney begins to pretty much tell him that, well, it's my money that paid for the house, and at the end of the day, nobody's going to tell me how to run nothing. I'm going to do me, and I'm going to do things my way, and it is what it is. And she's like, nobody controls me. So then we see that Bobby was supposed to, I think go out of town, and Tommy was outside waiting for him. Whitney, and that by this time, Bobby's off drugs, and he's not doing drugs anymore. And Whitney is literally trying to push him out the door, and pretty much he's been waiting for a minute. Tommy's been waiting for a minute outside and he's late. So finally Bobby goes outside, but then he remembers, like, oh, I forgot something. He goes back. Whitney's in the house with another guy. And immediately Bobby flips out. He's like, oh, what the fuck is this shit? What? I'm barely out the door and you already got some other nigga up in my house? Really? So he pretty much kind of approaches old boy and everything. He was like, so what the hell it is, bruh? I mean, if you up here trying to screw my wife and shit, at least be a man and own that shit. Oh, never mind though, because you kind of bitch made and you ain't her type. You ain't the kind of dude she go for. So either you slinging dick or you slinging coke. And when he went to try to find them drugs, that's when dude reacted. So he gave you the answer. He was there to give her drugs. Bobby beats his ass, and then Whitney tries to get in the middle of it, and he accidentally backhands Whitney, and she flips out, get out and everything, and he gets in the car with Tommy, and he's just very emotional. Tommy's trying to talk to him like, what the hell is going on? And he really just can't talk because he just was just very emotional that that just went down. Oh. And due to the fact that he fought the guy, that was a violation to his probation. Even though Whitney didn't press charges, he violated his probation, so he got locked up again. But while he's in jail, Tommy is talking to him, and he's pretty much saying that I got this idea for this reality show. This is a way for you to get, it's a way for you to get back control of your career and change the narrative of how people see you. Because he says all this advancement and stuff, getting stuff from these labels, that shit ain't working no more. We need another, arena where we can make money and you can establish your career. And then he was saying that, well, what about Whitney? He said that, look, this ain't about Whitney. This is about you. If you want Whitney to be in some of the episodes, that's fine, but this mainly is about you. And he was saying that, I don't know about this. He's like, look, you really need to change the narrative because now you're being more known for your antics than you are for your music. And then, and he says, it's about time you gotta, and it's now your time to hustle. And he's like, I don't need to hustle. I'm good. I got money. He's like, no, you got Whitney money. That ain't your money, it's her money. And in that scene, he kind of was like letting them know that, look, it's now time to try to keep control out of your life. And then they pretty much showed, being Bobby Brown, and they definitely showed the infamous scene when they were in the store and they was, they was with the glasses and, and they was doing their thing, and just wilding out. And, it definitely got a lot of bad reviews, and it definitely cast Whitney in a bad light because everybody saw the perfect image when it came to Whitney. Whitney was the pop princess. She was always very well made up, very well put together, and she was the total package. Well, within being Bobby Brown, we saw that, Whitney was just as crazy, was just as loud, and is just as boisterous as Bobby Brown. As I was saying in the review for part 1, hood boy meets hood girl. They were one and the same. So the fact that people saw that of Whitney, it got a lot of backlash for her. And we actually seen that after they did that little scene, in the store, they kind of have a conversation. He was like, you really don't need to do this if you don't want to. And she's like, no, it's fine, it's good. I'm here to support my man. And I know you're going to get you some little fans over this. And he was like, what do you mean little fans? We got fans all over the world. Both of us. And she was like, well, yeah, it is what it is. But, whatever happens with this. And then later on, we get a scene where it's now the aftermath of being Bobby Brown. They got a lot of it got a whole lot of heckling in the press, a whole lot of bad press, and people were really dragging Whitney through the mud. Pretty much, and they were just saying a whole bunch of bad things in the press. But Bobby's like, I don't give a damn about that. I know what's real, and I ain't worried about that. And she began to kind of say that, you're ruining my career, and I had, people are gonna now start thinking things about me, and it's all because of you, and you sucked me into this bullshit, and now it's kind of affecting me, and and they got into like this big explosive argument. And he was like, oh, you saying I'm the one that hurt your career? Like, you trying to say that it's my fault that things aren't going well for you? And she was like, yeah, my career was fine before you showed up. And he was like, need I remind you that when I first met you, you were booed at the Soul Train Awards? But not only that, you were booed by your own people. I had your back. I've always had your back. She's like, no, people loved me before I met you. And she was like, no, they love the image of you. They don't love you because they didn't know you. They loved the image. They didn't know you. They didn't have a connection with you. I love the real you. I love the person that no one else knows. These people don't even know you. They love the image of you. And, they kind of go back and forth. And he was like, you know what? People were happy with, people didn't start hating Bobby Brown until I got with your ass. So they started going back and forth, throwing jabs. And next thing you know, he comes back, he ends up leaving. When he comes back, Whitney and Bobby Chris are gone. They done dipped out. And, he's trying to call, Whitney or whatever. He finally gets in touch with her, and he's like, where the hell are you at? She's like, oh, we gone. We're done. And he was like, where's my daughter at? If you, I want to know what's going on with my child. And she was like, Bobby Chris is fine, and that's all you need to know, and hangs up on him. So then he gets in touch with Tommy and tells him that, look, I need to get some work and get some gigs, and he's like, so pretty much Bobby starts packing all his stuff, and he's ready to, try to find his daughter. He said that they probably up in LA, so that's where I'm going. And he's like, of course Tommy's like wondering, like, okay, are you sure you want to go at it like this? And he was like, look, all I care about is my daughter. The hell with Whitney, And he's like, man, you and Whitney been down this road so many times, man. Y'all should just work it out. He's like, nah, man, it's nothing to work out. Look, we're not in love anymore. Everything is different between me and her now. I'm not going back to that. I'm over it. I'm done. So he's like, look, I need some money, so I need you to give me some gigs. He ends up doing, this gig in, where I think like Belle Biv DeVoe and somebody else was on the bill. So he's performing some of his hits and everything. He's touring, that's definitely a money train. But then after the show, he runs into Alicia again. Now remember, Alicia was the one that actually talked to him in the bathroom on the day of his wedding, where he was to marry Whitney. She was one of the people that talked to him because he was getting drunk and he was nervous. And she was she used to date Teddy Riley back in the early 90s. But by this time, she said that she ain't seen Teddy Riley since like 92 or 93. So, and she's like, she's pretty much a manager in the music business. And they pretty much reconnect and everything. And we can definitely tell in part one, when they were in the bathroom, that there was like a connection between them. But, at the time, she was with Teddy and he was engaged to Whitney. And pretty much it was on his wedding day. So, but then now they're in a different place. And, they reconnect and they exchange numbers. And then, like, later on, we see that they actually sit down and talk, and he wants her to be his manager. But she says, okay, well, I need you to talk to your brother about that. Bobby agrees to do it, but Bobby doesn't. Oh, yes, okay. But then she also told him that, look, me being your manager, it means you have to listen, and actually let me guide you, because that's what a manager is supposed to do. But she says that you need to talk to Tommy about it. So then we see that also Bobby has a situation where he meets up with Whitney and Bobby Chris. Bobby Chris is about to smoke one of Whitney's cigarettes, and we can definitely see in this situation there's a lot of tension between Whitney and Bobby, and now Bobby Chris also has some issues against her father, and she was saying that you don't need to be smoking, and she was like, you smoke, and he was like, yeah, but I'm grown though, and she's like, are you? I'm like, okay, honey. But he kind of got her together though. He was like, first of all, regardless of what you may think, I'm still your father. And it's like, yeah, you're not just going to be talking to me like any old way. But he's like, look, I really want to know what's going on. She was like, look, obviously you moved on. And when you moved on, so did we. So at this time, she's like in her teens, and she's in that rebellious streak, and she's just totally against her father because of all of the, pretty much all of the domestic stuff that happened in Whitney's and Bobby's relationship definitely had an effect on Bobby Chris. But then when he left, it really did something to her, where she felt that her father abandoned her, so she just had a lot of anger towards him. So then we actually see that Tommy and Alicia have a moment, and she's pretty much doing what she does as a manager, and Tommy kind of was shut it down, I book all his shows, because I'm his manager, and I've been running this, and what are you doing? And she pretty much says that, look, he says he want to change, and pretty much, Tommy pretty much look, at the end of the day, I'm his brother first. And the reason why he chose me to be his manager is because he trusts me. And it's never been about the money for me. I'm about him. And she's like, yeah, and for me, I'm about his business, and I want his business to be good. But he kind of lets her know what she getting into. Look, Bobby has relapsed into drugs a few times. He's had a stroke. He's been shot at, and he was saying that, look, sometimes when that phone rings in the middle of the night, sometimes I sometimes get, it's like sometimes I get shook because I'm wondering whether I'm gonna hear the unthinkable. But he was like, look, I'm gonna let you step back and do your manager thing. If that's what he wants to do, I can respect that. I'll let you be his manager, but don't try to play like this is just about business. So he already kind of clocked it that she, definitely had an eye on Bobby, and obviously Bobby had an eye on her. And later on, we see that they have a scene where he rubs her feet, and one thing leads to another, and they getting it in. But before that happened, she did get Bobby together, and she was like, and that's one thing I can say, I like Alicia, because Alicia was that woman that wasn't going to take his shit. She wasn't going to be playing those games with him. And, when she found out that he didn't tell Tommy, she was like, you know what, I ain't got time for the bullshit. First of all, for you being a client, you have to keep your promises. And when you promised me you were going to talk to Tommy, that's exactly what you should have done. And not string me on with your bullshit. So we see that, yeah, she ain't no pushover. And she was definitely the kind of woman that Bobby needed. And then we get a scene where, Bobby, just got out the car and he's about to go to her house. And then all of a sudden he gets served divorce papers. So he gets drunk and then drives her car into the yard. she goes off on his ass. And, she was just not here for the bullshit. And he's like, I'm sorry. She's like, you're not coming in my house like that. Stay your ass out here. You're not coming in my house like that. You're not going to play these games with me. And he literally slept in the yard because she wasn't going to let him in the house drunk. So that was a different change for him. But then all of a sudden the next morning, you see that he's laying in the front yard. And she's like, look, I'm sorry, I just got served divorce papers and I just lost it. She's like, I don't feel sorry for your ass. And besides, why are you in your feelings? I mean, you still got feelings for her? And he's like, yeah, I do. I still somewhat have feelings for Whitney, and all of that. But, I just think it's just time for me to, but she's like, look, you didn't get served divorce papers. You got served life. You need to deal with it and stop tripping. Because I ain't with this drinking shit. I'm not with all this extra shit you coming with. You need to you need to kind of get your shit together and man up, because I don't got time for it. And we see that they have they pretty much come together. And then they had a scene where he actually invited the kids over to meet Alicia. And LaPrincia was rude as hell to Alicia. When she was like, oh, can I call you Prissy? She was like, Prissy is what my family calls me. So you can call me LaPrincia. Thank you very much. Bobby got her together like, why are you being so rude? And Landon, you ain't even talked to her. Like, what's going on? He's like, yeah. And then like Landon's like, well, you got all this here. Where's Chrissy? He's like, look, Whitney is not letting me get access to her, so that's why she's not here. But he's like, look, she's trying. You guys could at least, be trying to. She's a good woman, and y'all need to kind of, y'all need to give her a chance. And when she comes back, LaPrincia does apologize to her, and because Alicia's understanding, like here it is, this new woman's coming into their life, and of course, baby, LaPrincia is daddy's girl, just like Bobby Chris was. So they definitely had that guard up, like, oh no, we're gonna protect dad, and no, I'm just not just gonna accept you off the bat. Even kind of the same thing with boys and a man that their mother dates. It's the same thing. Men are protective of their mothers, daughters are protective of their fathers. So that was pretty good. Then he gets word that his father has stage 4 lung cancer, and he wants to move his mother and father out to Los Angeles because that's where he's living now. But then he gets drunk and becomes very, he kind of like pushes Alicia away. Alicia again lets him have it because she ain't for the bullshit, and she pretty much says that, look, if we gonna do this, I'm gonna need you to be better. I'm gonna need you to get better, and we need you to be better. He's like, what do you mean we? She lets him know she's pregnant, with their son Cassie, and that was definitely a game changer for them. And then we see that there was a scene where the car broke down, and we see that Alicia is bonding with Carol, Bobby's mom. And she was like, yeah, Mrs. Brown. And she was like, I can tell that you love my son. And we can see she's on an oxygen tank. Bobby's father has stage 4 lung cancer. And she was like, I know you love my son. I can see that you're the right woman for him. And she's like, I'm going to try to, yeah, she says, I really am in love with him, Mrs. Brown. And she was like, oh no, but honey, call me mom. Mrs. Brown is what I have people to call me that I really don't like. And she's like, I love you, sweetie. And you see that, both, his mother and father embraced him and everything. And we see that was a touching moment. But then later on, he gets a call from Tommy, and once he gets to the hospital, he finds out that his mother Carol died, and he broke down. And I think that's the reason why why in some instances why he never talks about her a lot is because his mom was his everything. He was very close to his mother, and as a matter of fact, his mother saved his life because if his mother didn't call Gerald Bugsby, back after he got kicked out of New Edition, Bobby could have possibly been dead, because he got sucked into that street life, and she believed in her son and believed in his talent, that she called Gerald and said that, look, I need 5 minutes of your time, and that changed Bobby's life forever. So, and then like at the funeral, we see that Bobby, Christina, as well as Whitney come to the funeral. They embrace Bobby, and Whitney Houston sings at the funeral. And then this is the first time that he has all of his kids together, even Bobby Chris, and they talking about, Mama Carol, her macaroni cheese, and her chicken and dumplings. And there was a good moment, and Bobby just looked so happy that all of his children are together because he loves his kids, People can say what they want, but Bobby does love his children, and he loves it when all of his children come together, and that was a very touching moment, and it was somewhat of an emotional moment, to see them at this place. Then later on, we see that his father ends up dying, and Bobby is just so distraught that Bobby's not even in the room. Bobby's outside sitting at a table, because again, his father was another strong anchor in his life, and his father supported him 100%. So two of the biggest people that have been by his side through everything, have now passed on. So we can definitely tell that Bobby Brown dealt with a lot, and he dealt with a lot from an early age up to the point where now in his later on in his life, he lost his mom, then he lost his dad. And then we see that he is going on tour with New Edition, and they're like in Mississippi, and that's when he gets word that Whitney had passed away. And I remember exactly where I was. I was actually on my way to meet my my good friend Janelle. We were going out to our spot, Open City, over there by Adams Morgan, and I remember I was waiting at the train, and a friend of mine called me and told me that Whitney Houston had passed, and I literally stopped dead in my tracks. And it took me days for me to finally process that Whitney had died. And definitely we see he's there with Johnny Gill, and Johnny Gill was the one that broke the news to him. And so immediately he starts calling, worried about Bobby Christina. He reaches her, and she's saying that, where are you? Who's with you and everything? And she's like, is Landon there? Is LaPrincia? Have your brothers and sisters read out to you? And she was like, yes, I'm with Nick. I'm with my brother Nick. She's like, and he was like, what the hell? You ain't got no brother named Nick. And so we already see that, yeah, that whole situation with Nick was something that, that definitely was just something that pretty much Nick was somebody that Whitney moved into the house, but Nick didn't really have a connection with Bobby Brown, or not much, and like pretty much other members of the family really didn't care for him. So we saw that go down, and then we see that and then we actually see, like, while he was before that had happened, we had got a performance when he was on stage touring, and Johnny Gill was on stage with him, and while he was singing, I think it was Rock With You, he proposed to Alicia on stage, after she had their first child. So that was a really moving scene too. But then afterwards, he finally has a moment with Bobby Christina, and they reconnect, and he pretty much she pretty much apologizes to him about everything that went down, because they actually show what happened at the funeral, where he came there with his kids, and they said that he could sit there, but his entourage is gonna have to leave. And he's like, this is my family, these are my children. You know, they loved Whitney. They're not going anywhere. And then it's like, well, we're gonna have to move you by force then. So we really get to see like what was really going on, as to why there was a whole bunch of, buzz about Bobby Brown being at Whitney's funeral. But what Bobby does, he goes and he kisses the casket. He goes out of the funeral, and then he sees Bobby Chris, and then the guards block him from getting to his own daughter. And this was done by the Houston family. You know, they didn't want Bobby there. And like at one point, Alicia's like, "Why are they doing this?" You know, and she said, and he blatantly said that, "Look, they hate me more than they love her." You know, and that's really what it all comes down to. But later on, him and Bobby Chris, after Whitney had passed, and you know, they had a conversation, and she was talking about coming to L.A. to meet his new wife and to meet her new little brother and all of that, and that they were gonna patch things up. But then later he gets a call from Bobby's phone, thinking that Bobby's on her way to L.A., but it's actually her cousin Ray, and Ray lets her know that you need to come to Atlanta. Bobby's in a coma, and we see that Bobby goes up in there. Bobby lets the Houston family know, I'm her next of kin. Any decisions involving my child I will be making. Does anybody in this room got a problem with it? And I was like, that's what's up, Bobby. And then we see that he's talking to the investigators and the doctor. They are pretty much saying that we don't know how long she's been without oxygen. We don't even know how she ended up in this situation. And Bobby's kind of like, 3 years ago, her mother was found dead in the bathtub after having a heart attack. Then all of a sudden, 3 years later, our daughter is caught in the same situation, kind of like carbon copy. And there's one person that has been a common denominator in both of these situations. He's like, look, I just want to let you know that if I get my hands on Nick Gordon, y'all might as well lock me up now, because ain't no telling what the hell I'm going to do to that fool. But he definitely made sure that Nick Gordon could no longer get access to Bobby Christina. But we all know that Bobby Christina was in a coma for 6 months before they decided to take off life support. And that scene, literally, I was very emotional and, you know, really almost broke down at that scene, because that was really sad. Ooh, I'm really fighting it right now just talking about it, because that was a hard scene, because here it is, all of her brothers and sisters are around her, and they've taken her off life support, and Bobby is just, you know, he's about to sing their little special song from Sly and the Family Stone. He couldn't even do it because he just broke down, and then the kids, you know, Landon and all of them started singing, you know, the song, you know, where Bobby couldn't sing anymore, and Bobby just cried, you know. And that definitely was one of the hardest things, because no parent wants to bury their child, and the fact that he actually had to do that was just really, forgive me, it was just really sad. And it really choked me up, as it's choking me up right now as I'm reviewing this. But then we see that after, you know, burying Bobby Chris, you know, he goes to counseling with his wife, and he talks about, you know, everything he's been through. And he pretty much turns to his wife and says that, you know, you're the main reason why I still continue to live. If it wasn't for you and my kids and my sisters and Tommy, I don't know what I would do. You know, you guys are my core, and you keep me together. And he looked at his wife and was like, you're my everything. You know, you see me through a lot of my crap and a lot of my bull, and you ain't take none of it from me. And that's exactly what Bobby needed. He needed that, you know, that woman that wasn't gonna let him just do whatever. You know, she wasn't gonna take the crap. And it was good. You know, then they and then, like, you know, Um, we see that later on, he actually has a cookout, because Bobby Brown is known for being a good cook, so he's cooking on the grill and everything, and you see little Cass is actually dancing to every little step. So he's seeing another generation of him loving his music, and he's just looking at them and he's smiling. And that definitely took me out too, because after all the stuff he's been through, he is probably the most happiest he's ever been. Him and Alicia now have 3 children, and he still also has a connection with all of his other kids. And I think it was done very well. I shout out to Bobby Brown, shout out to Woody McClain, shout out to everybody that was involved with this production of the Bobby Brown story. It was a story that needed to be told, and it definitely was a story that definitely touched me in a very deep way. And may God bless him, and God continue to bless his family. And I just really enjoyed this from beginning to end. So that's what I have, y'all. If I missed anything, put it down in the comments. And the reason why, and the thing is, I'm making the thumbnail to this video, the photo when him and Whitney got married, because here it is, they had this great marriage, but because of drugs and outside forces, coming in, a good thing just took a turn for the worse. But a lot of great things came out of their union as well. One of them being Bobby Christina, and rest in peace Bobby Christina, and rest in peace Whitney Houston, and also rest in peace to everyone that Bobby Brown lost. But yeah, again, if I missed anything, put it down in the comments. But I really did enjoy this movie. So subscribe to my channel. Click that bell so you get notifications every time I drop a video. Also, follow me on all of my social platforms. I have them listed in the description box. Also, like this video, comment on this video, and share this video. And it's been great reviewing this. It's been great reviewing the Bobby Brown story, and I definitely look forward to doing more, doing more in the future. And I thank all of you for tuning in to this video. So until next time, everybody, take care.